Hey, what's going on, you guys? This is Christopher Bonilla. The following interview is a video that I did back in 2016 with another production team. And when it comes to self-publishing, this is pretty much my views back then about what it's like to have an identity as an author and creating your identity and where your inspiration comes from, discovering who you are as you read and write and where it is you get inspiration from.
My name is Christopher Bonilla. I'm an author. I've written, edited, and published two books, which is called, the first one is called Running Lips, and the second book is called Lyrical Righteousness. Those names came from ideas. Like, the way I would title a poem is first the word or the phrase, like let's say running lips. Like, I would think of that phrase, and from there I would pray about it and find inspiration through like a life experience and just write about that. And then I would just, like, the title of the poem would be the title of the book. Like, the last poem is the title of the book. And I got inspiration from this author named Shel Silverstein. And he was like a kid, he wrote kid books and stuff like that, like really thick ones, and like he would write poetry, and like the title of his books would be the name of one of the poems. So that's what I did. That's what I did too, because I couldn't think of a title. Yes, I did read his books as a kid when I was like in 2nd and 3rd grade and even 4th grade. I went to like elementary school and middle school in Dallas, Texas, and so I remember at the library they had those books and I would read them, and they would be like just like little short poems, like couple words here and there. They wouldn't be like long, you know, and I would find inspiration from that, and I liked what he did. It was simple but like unique. When it comes to writing, I've always liked hip-hop music, and I've liked hip-hop music, and I liked the pattern of rhyming. You know, when I would read Shel Silverstein in poetry, I would also read like Dr. Seuss, right, like The Cat in the Hat or How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or like those kid books. I would read those, or like Green Eggs and Ham. And I would always like the rhyme pattern. And in hip-hop, when I was younger, the hip-hop that I would hear on the radio was not very appropriate, but I still liked it, like taka 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 taka, like I liked that. And it wasn't until maybe like maybe 10th grade or like 11th grade of high school, or like 11th grade of high school, that I actually started writing. And I would just write about like worldly things, just worldly things. And then I met Christ around my junior year of high school when I moved here to Miami, and then I started like converting all like my rhymes to Christianity. Like, instead of talking about like worldly things or worldly possessions, I would just glorify God in my poetry, and I would just continue writing like that. What I would normally do is the pattern of the poetry. The pattern of the poetry I see is what entertains the audience, and a lot of times I would have to be very vulnerable and real with what I'm saying. Like, if I'm struggling with if I'm struggling with a situation or a problem, that the Bible says what you have gone through, someone else has gone through before, right? So it's something like, if I write about something, whether it be a situation with like a relationship or a friendship or a financial situation, or just you just see like an issue that's a problem, like a difficult circumstance, I would write about that, but I would try to make it relatable to the audience by being open, by being vulnerable. Like, oh, I'm struggling with this rhyme is involving this, but yeah, I know God is with me in this, you know? I would do stuff like that to make it relatable, because I have to be very real with what I'm writing. And I would incorporate God into that, because I see Jesus Christ as my hope and my salvation for a better tomorrow and the better future. And so even no matter how sad, or no matter how deep the poem is and emotional, I always did my best to incorporate the faith, and I would pray about it, and I would just like to give my audience hope that yes, you can overcome this, you know, and you're not alone in this, and God is with both of us. Yes, those are the only 2 books I have written that are published. I have 2 more on the way. I have a 3rd book coming out called Living Stones, which is just essentially like another collection of poems that I've written. And Living Stones, it talks about like just how we as Christians, like, there's a lot of people who know the word, but they just stay still. But then it's like God can cause anything to come to life, including the stones, and we have to represent Christ through just what we know and become the living stones. So Living Stones, and then I have another one called, my 4th one called We Are Gods, and it's like we are Gods 'S. So it's like, we do not belong to this world, we do not belong to our society, we are God's, like we are God's children, you know? So it's like that. So I have the Living Stones and We Are Gods, 2 more. The formula for getting the titles is, I always try to find a title with like the coolest meaning, you know? So like, I don't really have a favorite poem. Each poem is inspired by a different situation or a different event in my life, or like just something. Each one is different, but the title of each book is for me is just the coolest poem that I like, the poem that I'm like, oh wow, I like to read it, or I find entertaining when I say it. And so like either it has the most powerful meaning, or like the coolest like word play of like hip hop sound. So there's really no formula though. I just like to keep it short also, so as long as it's not too long, it's cool. I was born here in America, in the United States, and so English was so common to me, right? And I began writing when I was like in middle school, around there. Like I had my journals, and just like just going to church also, like I would write about God and stuff like that. And I remember that I was always like, when I was younger, I was a very like philosophical thinker, and I would think deep about a lot of things. And so I would try to tell my friends, even if my friends were like in the hip hop scene of like rapping and stuff or breakdancing, but they wouldn't listen. So I really began writing because no one would listen. God is a gracious and loving God who's willing to give you the desires of your heart, you know, if it glorifies him, so that way people can see what he's doing, you know. And so yeah, you can find my books on barnesandnobles.com and amazon.com. You can either type in my name, Christopher Bonilla, or you can type in the titles of the book, Running Lips and Lyrical Righteousness, and they'll show up right there.
Thank you all for watching. I want to give a big shout out to the homie Fano. That's his music playing in the background of this video. I'm going to leave the links of where you can find him and his music in the description box below. Thank you and stay blessed.
I'm just trying to live my life.